What happens when the most powerful man in the free world steps onto foreign soil and expects a salute that never comes? When ego meets centuries, old tradition, and one silent soldier speaks louder than politics ever could? Welcome to a one-story teller where real life stories meet unforgettable moments. In today's gripping episode, we dive into a jaw-dropping encounter between Donald Trump and the British Royal Guard, an incident that sparked global headlines, exploded across social media, and gave the world a moment it wouldn't soon forget. What starts as a formal diplomatic visit quickly spirals into a lesson in humility, ceremony, and the unshakable power of tradition. So buckle up, because this is not just a story about a missed salute. It's a clash between authority and allegiance, and it all begins right here. It was a state visit marked with grandeur, tight schedules, and the signature tension that accompanies any appearance of a U.S. president on foreign soil, especially when that president is Donald J. Trump. Known for his boldness, unpredictability, and a flair for spectacle, Trump's arrival in the United Kingdom was anticipated with equal parts excitement and apprehension by media, political figures, and citizens alike. As his heavily guarded motorcade rolled through the historic streets of London, anticipation rippled through the crowd. This was more than just a political engagement. It was a cultural collision between American bravado and British tradition. The day was one of those quintessentially British mornings. Slightly overcast skies gave way to brief spells of sunshine, casting a golden hue over the historic Buckingham Palace. It was here, in the heart of royal ceremonial power, that the scheduled welcome was set to take place. Guards had been positioned, musicians were ready with their brass instruments, and royal officials prepared for a photo-perfect scene. The visit was designed to be formal and tightly orchestrated, a fusion of diplomacy and tradition, featuring all the pageantry the British monarchy is renowned for. Trump stepped out of his black armored limousine, buttoning his suit jacket and adjusting his signature red tie. He was flanked by aides, security, and a small contingent of British hosts. Almost immediately, he was greeted by the unyielding silence and precision of the Queen's Guard, soldiers in red coats and tall bearskin hats, standing motionless like statues despite the activity around them. Their composure was deliberate, unwavering, and steeped in a long lineage of military tradition. As Trump approached the main line of guards, a subtle shift in the air seemed to indicate something unexpected was about to occur. Onlookers, photographers, and staff assumed this would be a routine moment, Trump walking past the guards, perhaps offering a nod or standing for the national anthems. But what followed stunned those nearby and would quickly make headlines across the globe. Trump paused in front of one of the guards, cameras clicked faster, his body language shifted, he tilted his head, scrutinizing the soldier before him as though sizing up someone expected to show deference. Then, in a moment that seemed to defy all expectations, Trump pointed at the guard and issued a command. "You," he said loud enough for several aides to hear, "salute me." For a second, those nearby weren't sure if he was serious. Was it a joke, a test of some kind? But Trump's voice was unmistakably firm, his gesture deliberate. He wasn't smiling. He genuinely expected the guard to follow his order. It wasn't unusual for Trump to expect salutes. Back in the U.S., military personnel saluted him as commander-in-chief. It had become a part of his identity as a leader, but this wasn't the Pentagon. This was Buckingham Palace. The royal guard to whom Trump had addressed the order didn't so much as blink. His eyes remained fixed straight ahead, posture perfectly erect, his rifle in hand, boots firmly planted on the stone pathway. In that moment, he became the embodiment of centuries, old British military discipline, a figure trained to remain entirely unresponsive to anything outside of official command. The silence that followed was deafening. There was no flurry of motion, no acknowledgement, and certainly no salute. For a few long seconds Trump stood there, puzzled. He looked at the guard as if expecting clarification. The guard did not move. To everyone watching, staff, press, British officials, it was clear that the guard wasn't going to break protocol. His stillness, practiced and resolute, delivered an unspoken message: "You are not in command here." To the untrained eye, the lack of response might have seemed disrespectful or even confrontational, but in reality, it was a demonstration of extreme respect toward the institution, the uniform, and the rules that have governed the role of the Royal Guard for generations. These soldiers aren't ceremonial actors playing a part. They are active, duty military personnel representing the crown. Their duty isn't to acknowledge visitors or respond to foreign dignitaries. Their role is clear and absolute: stand watch, protect the sovereign, and respond only to orders issued from within their strict chain of command. Trump, visibly thrown off, gestured again, this time with more force, seemingly convinced that perhaps the guard hadn't understood him the first time. He repeated the command, voice slightly raised, "Salute," but the result was the same. The guard remained unmoved, a human pillar amid the subtle hum of the palace grounds. A nearby British liaison quickly stepped forward, his tone quiet but firm, whispering into the president's ear. He explained that the guards were under very strict orders not to break formation, not to engage, and certainly not to respond to direct commands from anyone outside the British military structure. Even royals, aside from the reigning monarch, rarely expect or receive such personal gestures of deference from these guards. They are symbols of duty and order, not tools of vanity. Trump's expression shifted. There was a flash of disbelief, perhaps even irritation. Back home, respect from uniformed service members was expected, even demanded. In his experience, a salute wasn't just a formality. It was a reflection of his position, his power. But here, in this silent standoff between personal expectation and historical discipline, the guard had silently redefined the power dynamic. The moment might have passed unnoticed in a different context, but this was Buckingham Palace. This was a high-profile state visit, and every camera was focused. The footage, brief as it was, captured the very essence of the interaction. One man, powerful and assertive, commanding recognition, and another, silent and stoic, standing as a monument to rules that even global leaders couldn't bend. There was no defiance in the guard's face, no emotion at all, in fact, and that was the point. His training was so deeply ingrained that he likely heard the command, processed it, and made the immediate decision, instinctive and unquestioned, to ignore it. Not out of disrespect, but because that's what was required of him. Breaking formation or acknowledging the command would have been a violation of military protocol, an act that could have serious consequences within his ranks. That stillness, that refusal to break the mold, spoke louder than words. It told everyone present, including the leader of the free world, that some institutions are built on rules so old and so respected that not even a president can rewrite them with a gesture. The Royal Guard is one of the most iconic symbols of British heritage. Clad in their unmistakable scarlet tunics and tall bearskin hats, they're instantly recognized around the world, not just for their ceremonial elegance, but for their unwavering stillness and composure. But beneath the visual spectacle lies a much deeper system of protocol, discipline, and military structure. These are not props placed outside palaces for show. They are active, duty soldiers serving under the command of the British Armed Forces. And one of the most important rules they follow is this: Royal Guards do not take orders from anyone outside the British military hierarchy, including visiting heads of state. This protocol isn't about disrespect. It's about structure. The British Army, and specifically the units tasked with guarding royal properties like Buckingham Palace, operate within a defined and deeply ingrained chain of command. That chain of command ultimately reports to the reigning monarch, currently the king. Orders travel down through military officers and direct superiors, and only within that chain can instructions be given and obeyed. Even senior members of the royal family, including princes and princesses, do not issue commands to these guards unless they are also serving officers. The guards' loyalty and duty are to the crown, not to individuals. no matter how powerful or globally significant those individuals may be. When Donald Trump, then President of the United States, ordered a royal guard to salute him during his state visit, he inadvertently collided with this very principle. In his own country, as commander-in-chief of the military, a presidential order carries immediate authority. Service members are trained to salute and respond to the president. That dynamic is rooted in the U.S. Constitution, where civilian leadership of the military is a founding principle. But in the UK, the military answers to a different sovereign structure, one embedded in centuries of monarchy, law, and tradition. That structure is unyielding, particularly when it comes to ceremonial roles like the Royal Guard. To the untrained observer, the idea that a soldier would ignore a direct request from one of the most powerful political figures in the world may seem perplexing. But to those within the British system, it's not only expected, it's required. Royal Guards receive rigorous training not just in their military duties, but in how to conduct themselves during high-profile ceremonial events. They are instructed to remain motionless, to refrain from speaking, and above all, to never engage with visitors unless instructed to do so by a commanding officer. Breaking this code of conduct is taken seriously and can lead to disciplinary action. This immovable tradition is one of the reasons the Royal Guard is held in such high regard. Their presence outside royal palaces isn't just about spectacle. It's a representation of stability, continuity, and reverence for protocol. They are there to serve the crown, not to entertain tourists or honor visiting dignitaries on a whim. Their purpose remains the same whether the person in front of them is a curious child, a loud tourist, or the President of the United States. Foreign leaders are often briefed on the dos and don'ts of visiting the royal family and interacting with ceremonial units. These briefings cover everything from how to address members of the monarchy to what gestures are considered respectful or inappropriate. In this case, whether due to a lack of briefing or a disregard for it, Trump's action highlighted a sharp cultural disconnect. His assumption that a foreign guard would recognize his authority, simply because of his title, missed a crucial detail: the guards aren't political. They don't salute based on politics or position, they salute based on protocol. It's a subtle but powerful distinction. The guards do not express personal opinion, loyalty, or recognition through their gestures. Their behavior is an expression of the system they serve. In refusing to salute Trump, the guard wasn't being defiant. He was doing his job up, holding the integrity of the post and the centuries of tradition behind it. No amount of global influence or political clout could override that rule. In fact, the very strength of the Royal Guard lies in their refusal to be swayed by status or spectacle, as with most modern moments involving high-profile figures and public events. The incident between Donald Trump and the Royal Guard didn't stay contained within the palace grounds. A handful of media outlets and independent journalists had been recording every moment of the state visit. As soon as the exchange, or rather the lack of exchange, between Trump and the guard took place, several cameras captured the scene in stunning clarity. From Trump's hand gesture to the guard's stone-faced silence, the entire interaction unfolded over just a few seconds, but its impact would ripple far beyond the moment itself. Within minutes, short video clips began appearing on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Some were uploaded by professional news agencies, others by attendees who had caught the event on their smartphones. The visual simplicity of the moment made it instantly relatable: a global leader issuing a command, and a silent soldier refusing to react. It was dramatic, awkward, and strangely powerful all at once. The contrast was almost cinematic. Viewers around the world quickly began sharing the clip, often with captions filled with humor, criticism, or admiration. Hashtags like #TrumpSnubbed, #RoyalGuard, and #BuckinghamBlunder began trending. Memes sprang up with lightning speed, some superimposing thought bubbles over Trump's face, others portraying the guard as an unflinching symbol of British discipline. Late night talk shows picked it up as an easy comedic target. News channels dissected the moment, inviting experts in royal protocol and international diplomacy to weigh in. What gave the moment its viral strength wasn't just who was involved, it was what it represented. In an age dominated by social media, where every public figure is under constant scrutiny, moments like these are rare opportunities for people to witness unscripted human reactions. The video didn't require context or narration to be understood. It was pure visual storytelling. Trump, accustomed to commanding presence and immediate compliance, found himself stonewalled, not by protest or confrontation, but by sheer indifference rooted in centuries of tradition. That made the footage compelling. Some online users viewed the incident as a symbolic power check, a reminder that no matter how important someone is in one part of the world, they don't automatically command the same respect everywhere. Others took a more humorous approach, editing the footage with dramatic music or overlaying fictional commentary to exaggerate the awkwardness. Still others used the clip as a jumping-off point to discuss larger themes such as cultural imperialism, diplomatic decorum, and the enduring strength of British institutions. For supporters of Trump, reactions were mixed. Some felt the guards' refusal was disrespectful, while others acknowledged that Trump should have been briefed more thoroughly. Critics, however, saw it as a telling moment of hubris, a leader unprepared for the limits of his authority outside his own borders. British viewers, for the most part, celebrated the moment. It became a quiet point of national pride. In the stoicism of the Guard, they saw a subtle but effective reassertion of British tradition and independence. The sheer reach of the footage turned a minor diplomatic misunderstanding into a cultural moment. It transcended politics and became a story shared in classrooms, office break rooms, and living rooms around the world. In a media landscape often flooded with chaos, the simplicity and clarity of this scene made it unforgettable. A man of power expecting acknowledgement, and a soldier bound by duty to remain still, captured in perfect clarity and immortalized by the internet. As soon as the video of Donald Trump ordering a royal guard to salute him surfaced online and began circulating across various platforms, the story leapt from digital virality into the mainstream media landscape. Within hours, it was headline news not just in the United Kingdom or the United States, but in dozens of countries. What might have been a brief, forgettable moment during a diplomatic visit was now being picked apart by political analysts, royal commentators, former military officials, and even cultural critics. Each brought a different perspective to the table, and the debates that followed revealed just how layered and globally significant the incident had become. Major international news networks like BBC, CNN, Sky News, Al Jazeera, and France 24 all dedicated airtime to breaking down the event. On one hand, it was treated as a protocol misunderstanding. On the other, it was dissected as a moment of overreach by a powerful political figure. Pundits clashed over the interpretation of Trump's gesture. Some framed it as an innocent mistake made by a president unfamiliar with British ceremonial codes. Others argued it was indicative of a larger pattern, Trump's perceived need for dominance and visible loyalty, even in spaces where such behavior was unwelcome or inappropriate. In the United Kingdom, the tone was noticeably different. British media outlets were quick to focus on the steadfastness of the Guard and the strength of traditional royal customs. Editorials in prominent newspapers like The Times, The Guardian, and The Telegraph explored the deeper symbolism behind the moment. Writers praised the Guard for maintaining discipline and composure, while gently criticizing Trump for not understanding or not respecting the boundaries of a ceremonial institution. The story quickly took on a larger meaning, not just a moment of discomfort, but a subtle victory for British decorum over foreign flamboyance. Across Europe, coverage skewed toward fascination and a sense of bemusement. In Germany, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, the story was framed as a culture clash between American assertiveness and European tradition. Commentators on talk shows and in op-ed columns discussed what the moment revealed about American diplomacy under Trump, often using it as a springboard to revisit previous incidents where protocol had been similarly overlooked or dismissed during international visits. In the United States, the reaction was polarized. Right-leaning media outlets like Fox News and the Daily Wire were more inclined to defend Trump, suggesting that the media was blowing a minor incident out of proportion. They argued that the president was simply interacting in a way that felt natural to him, and that expecting him to fully grasp every nuance of British ceremonial conduct was unrealistic. Some even pointed to the stoicism of the Guard as being unnecessarily stiff or cold, although this was a minority view. On the other hand, left-leaning outlets such as MSNBC, CNN, and The Washington Post used the story as a critique of Trump's broader approach to leadership. Commentators emphasized how the moment symbolized a misunderstanding of diplomacy, respect, and foreign customs. To them, it was more than just a failed attempt at a salute. It was a telling glimpse into the mindset of a leader who often demanded recognition and control in every setting. Social media, meanwhile, amplified every angle of the discussion. Academics weighed in with threads explaining the historical roots of the Royal Guard's discipline. Veterans from the U.S. and UK offered personal takes on military respect and the chain of command. Historians contextualized the moment within the long-standing relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, noting how moments like this could either be forgotten quickly or remembered as symbolic missteps that echoed beyond the news cycle. Even late-night television hosts around the world joined the conversation. From Trevor Noah to Stephen Colbert, from Graham Norton to Australia's The Project, comedians lampooned the moment with satirical commentary and jokes that resonated with a global audience. They didn't just mock the awkwardness, they pointed out the contrast between national identities, between rigid ceremonial standards and informal, personality-driven leadership styles. Diplomatic circles took notice too. Though no official incident report or statement was issued by Buckingham Palace, insiders later suggested that royal aides were quietly displeased, not in a way that would damage diplomatic relations, but in a way that confirmed the importance of respecting formality. Behind the scenes, discussions likely occurred about reinforcing briefings for future visits, not just for American leaders, but for any international guests unfamiliar with British customs. What made the debate so widespread wasn't just Trump's global profile, but the nature of the moment itself. It was brief, unscripted, and visually powerful. The tension was evident, the misunderstanding was clear, the implications about leadership, respect, and tradition were easy for people across cultures to latch onto. As the video continued to circulate, the discussion only deepened, spilling into academic lectures, international classrooms, and think tanks that explored diplomatic protocol and international relations. At the heart of the entire incident between Donald Trump and the Royal Guard lies a fundamental principle that defines much of British ceremonial life. Tradition takes precedence over status. In other words, no matter how powerful or influential a person may be, they are still subject to the customs and formalities that have guided British institutions for generations. This adherence to tradition is not a formality for formality's sake. It is a deeply embedded cultural value that reflects national identity, historical continuity, and institutional respect. British protocol, particularly when it involves the monarchy, is governed by an intricate set of rules designed to preserve the dignity and neutrality of the crown. These rules are not easily bent, even for visiting presidents, prime ministers, or celebrities. They serve as a symbolic equalizer, ensuring that all guests, regardless of their power or fame, interact with royal institutions in the same structured, respectful manner. The consistency of these customs reinforces the idea that tradition is the true authority, not individual personalities. This principle is clearly evident in the way royal guards conduct themselves. Their behavior is not dictated by who is standing in front of them, but by the orders and structure they are sworn to follow. Whether the individual passing by is the king, a schoolchild, or the leader of the world's most powerful nation, The response is the same: stillness, silence, and unwavering discipline. To break that pattern, simply because a figure of prominence expects it, would go against the very ethos of their role. British tradition does not leave room for improvisation in such moments. Every step, salute, and gesture is codified and practiced. Guards are not only trained physically but mentally to resist distraction, to remain emotionally neutral, and to represent the monarchy with absolute consistency. In this context, the expectation of a salute from a visiting leader doesn't just misunderstand the protocol, it misjudges the values embedded in the institution itself. The emphasis on tradition is not limited to the guards. It extends to the way royal audiences are held, how gifts are exchanged, how one should behave during formal events, and even how one should speak or move in the presence of royalty. When foreign dignitaries are invited to meet the king or queen, they are usually briefed in detail about these expectations. Everything from posture to attire is considered part of respecting the established order. While some may find this strictness outdated, many see it as a necessary preservation of identity in a rapidly changing world. In contrast, countries like the United States pride themselves on informality and directness. A handshake, a pat on the back, a casual tone, these are often seen as signs of openness and authenticity, but in Britain, particularly within royal circles, such behavior can be interpreted as overly familiar or even disrespectful. The clash between these cultural approaches is what often leads to awkward moments during international visits, and the Trump Royal Guard incident was a textbook example. By emphasizing tradition over status, the British system sends a clear message: the institution matters more than the individual. Protocol exists not to elevate one person over another, but to create a framework where everyone, regardless of background or position, interacts on equal terms within a ceremonial context. It is this structure that allows the monarchy to maintain its symbolic power in a modern democracy. It's also what makes moments of deviation, like Trump's command, all the more striking. The power of tradition lies in its ability to transcend personality. It binds people to a shared set of behaviors and expectations that communicate respect, stability, and continuity. In the UK, this tradition is not seen as restrictive, but as honorable. It reflects a collective understanding that some roles are bigger than those who temporarily fill them. The Royal Guard, in this case, became the personification of that belief, a living symbol that certain lines are not crossed, not out of defiance, but out of reverence. Donald Trump, accustomed to being saluted by U.S. military personnel as commander-in-chief, seemed to carry that expectation with him during his official visit to the United Kingdom. When he ordered a royal guard at Buckingham Palace to salute him, it revealed a fundamental misreading of the ceremonial norms that define British royal protocol. Unlike in the U.S., where salutes are often a gesture of respect toward a figure of authority, the royal guards do not respond to foreign leaders, regardless of their status. They answer only to their British superiors and ultimately the Crown. Trump's gesture, though perhaps routine in his own context, collided with the rigid ceremonial framework that defines the Royal Guard's conduct. The request for a salute wasn't just outside protocol, it disrupted a tradition built over centuries. It exposed a cultural gap between American expectations of authority and British insistence on tradition, where personal power yields to institutional roles and historical codes of conduct. After the awkward interaction unfolded in front of cameras, Trump's aides were quick to act behind the scenes. Realizing the moment might be interpreted as a breach of royal protocol, they began damage control almost immediately. Several aides reached out to British officials for clarification and context, hoping to smooth relations and ensure there were no further misunderstandings. Internally, staff acknowledged that more comprehensive briefings should have been delivered to the President regarding the conduct of the Royal Guard and the ceremonial limits of such engagements. Adjustments were made to future interactions scheduled during the visit, with aides doubling down on protocol reminders. The concern wasn't just about avoiding another misstep, it was about managing global perception. With the moment already spreading rapidly online, aides worked to frame it as a minor misunderstanding rather than a diplomatic insult, knowing that in such a high-profile visit, even the smallest gesture could carry significant symbolic weight. The Royal Guard's motionless stance in response to Trump's unexpected command was more than an act of protocol. It was a powerful symbol of loyalty. The Guard's refusal to react, even under pressure from one of the world's most influential political figures, demonstrated an unwavering commitment to the values and hierarchy of the British monarchy. Their duty is to the crown, not to individuals, no matter how high, ranking, or famous. This unflinching discipline is what defines the Guard's role and reinforces centuries of ceremonial tradition. The silence, the stillness, and the unbroken composure all communicated that tradition outranks personality. The moment served as a quiet but profound reminder that in the British system, symbols of state are protected not by performance, but by loyalty to something greater than any one leader, a living embodiment of service over showmanship. What could have been a forgettable exchange quickly turned into a global teaching moment on the importance of humility and cultural awareness. Trump's assumption that his position warranted a salute clashed with the British understanding of ceremonial integrity, illustrating how easily ego can misinterpret respect. In diplomatic contexts, gestures carry as much meaning as words, and this one exposed the consequences of disregarding tradition. The incident revealed the difference between demanding honor and earning it, especially in a place where history and symbolism are deeply protected. It forced a re-evaluation of how power should be presented in spaces where respect is earned through knowledge of custom rather than assertion of rank. The Guard's silence became the loudest statement in the room, offering an enduring lesson on how diplomacy is shaped not just by intention, but by an understanding of the cultures in which it operates. In the end, this wasn't simply a viral video or a diplomatic blunder. It was a powerful reminder of how fragile international perception can be when tradition and ego collide. From the moment Donald Trump ordered a salute to the silent defiance of the Royal Guard, the incident unfolded as a global case study in respect, cultural awareness, and the boundaries of power. It revealed a glaring difference between American expectations of authority and British devotion to ceremonial tradition. It showed how discipline and loyalty, as embodied by one immovable soldier, can speak volumes without a single word. Trump's misunderstanding of ceremonial protocol, the rapid response of his aides, the media storm that followed, and the symbolism of a silent guard reinforced a timeless truth. In diplomacy, respect cannot be commanded, it must be earned. Power may influence many things, but it doesn't rewrite the rules of a kingdom bound by history. This story brought to light how the smallest gestures, like a salute with held, can turn into defining moments on the global stage. It taught a lesson in humility, discipline, and the critical importance of understanding the world beyond our borders. A salute was never given, but a message was loud and clear.